Welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Um, Before we continue, there is something that I would like to address. The Creator Himself demands that we worship Him in spirit and in truth. So why then is every time that the word spirituality or spiritual is mentioned, people get their backs up against the wall, referring to it as voodoo or black magic, or even going to the point of calling people witches? When the Red Sea was parted, that was not a physical act. That was a spiritual act directed by the Creator Himself. And He demands that we worship Him in spirit and in truth. So why are people so afraid to spend time in the spiritual world, which is even more real than the physical world? As I've stated before, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And the only way to reconnect with the Creator is to be spiritual. The entire purpose of the human body is to reconnect with the Creator. And since He is spiritual and He is in all of us, we are spiritual. So I really don't understand what this fear of spirituality is all about. Everybody wants to reconnect with the Creator, but they don't want to be spiritual in order to make that reconnection. Come on. The Creator is a spiritual being. And by the way, some of you are going to get your knickers all tied in a knot. The Creator is masculine and feminine. Anyway, last time we left off at chapter 8, and we're going to pick up at chapter 9 and carry on from there. As I said before, I'm not a perfect being, so please do not expect perfection from me. I will mispronounce words. I will misread sentences, but I will do my best to correct them. The book is called Spiritual Messages Channeled Through Me. It is written by my sister Denise, who has given me written authorization to present it on this platform in its entirety. And it is available on Amazon. The title of chapter 9 is In Slavery. There are sections in chapter 9 where my sister Denise is speaking, giving her input, showing her disagreement about certain things, and is being cautioned by one of her spirit guides about putting her, about including her opinion. Anyway, we will continue with chapter 9. Baruzi has managed to stall his brother for almost 4 months. Now that the babies are able to take porridge made with cow's or goat's milk, he strikes a deal with his brother. Vincenzi can work in the fields, but she's not to be branded in any way, shape, or form. She's not to be sexually molested, and she is to work 5 days per week as opposed to 6. On his part, he will look after the children while Vincenzi's in the fields. And look after the children he does. When they mess themselves, he simply hoses them down with pumped water before he lathers them up with soap and hoses them down again. When they're hungry, he feeds them from bottles with nipples as one would feed a sick baby goat, except he cuddles them while feeding them. He boils their drinking water and covers it by the kitchen window to cool. He has an outside pen for them, complete with a wooden flooring and lined with burlap, positioned where he keeps a firm eye on them as he goes about his yard chores. They know him, probably as well as they know their mother. They are happy when he joins them in the pen, accepting him as companion for play. He too looks forward to the smiles and coos he gets from them, and he's not frazzled when they start to wail for food or for comfort or to have any other need met. It would appear to the observer that he needs the children, although for different reasons, as much as they need him. Where he goes, the children go. He has arranged his life to accommodate their necessity, since Vincenzi remains on the plantation during her days at work, thus not getting the luxury of coming home to her infants at night. It is not long before the children become more attached to him than to their mother. Brandes teases him and cautions him during his visits to the cabin, as well as during Baruzzi's occasional visit to Brandes' house, as Baruzzi occasions this stay after his errands in town. You have made yourself a mother of those nigger babies. You spoil them, give them a life that is not normal for them. What is going to happen to them when they start to experience life as it really is for them? He actually wants an answer, adding, "Tell me." A lovely way to welcome your niece and nephew's visit on such a sunny afternoon. Baruzzi dismissively responds to his brother's expressed concern. "We stopped in because we thought you might want to join us for lunch by the river, Uncle Brandes." It is hard to know whether Brandes really cares about his brother's well-being or whether he is concerned only about the spoilage of his future workforce, or whether he might actually have some genuine concern for the children. Given the reality of their future as black subservients in the heart of black slavery, serving as inferior beings because the overt consensus amongst those who hold social power is that they are inferior beings that should never be thought of as equal to those who are covered in a skin of a contrasting or of a deviating hue. Nah, he doesn't give a damn about my hurt, about any hurt those children endure, as long as the hurt does not interfere with their ability to economically produce after all. The better the condition his goods are in, the better the prospects of a good return. I am surprised you even remember how to communicate with adults, considering the amount of time you spend in monkey babble. He is not yet done with today's constructive criticism to help Baruzzi improve his life. "Mother Baruzzi, you don't go to any social events, you don't accept visitors, you don't go to church, you don't seek the company of a woman. Is that all you're going to do with your life, mother nigger babies?" Baruzzi's not much fazed by his brother's jarring. He grins an annoying grin before he speaks. "You never mind me and my monkey babble with my nigger babies," and then continues his grin that continues to grate on his brother's nerves. Mindful not to keep his children for too long in his brother's poisonous presence, he holds his monkey baby babble with them before he swoops up their portable carriage to take his leave. He had hoped that his meeting with his brother would have ended with Ventesi being able to spend time with her children during her work days, a scheduled half hour each day, perhaps, but quickly concluded that if such an arrangement were ever to be made, it would not be on this day. Life for Ventisi is for as for all slaves. Even the ones who live in the best of circumstances is not an easy life. She does not complain about the blisters on her hands, nor does she complain about her swollen feet while on the plantation. She soaks them in a bush remedy, as do the other slaves at the cabin. However, she soaks them in warm salt water. She takes a seat at the dining table before immersing her feet in a wooden wash tub of the salt water solution, and her hands in a bowl of the same. Resting her head against the back of the chair on which she sits as she deeply inhales the sting of the salt in her blisters that also brings relief to her swollen limbs. Baruzzi, upon taking her hands out of the salt water to inspect them, makes a fuss about her condition. She retrieves her hands from his gentle hold and reminds him empathically that her life is much better than that of any slave she knows. She also reminds him that he, as a slave owner, plays a part in her condition and in the lives of his other slaves who live in much worse condition than hers. He is embarrassed. She didn't mean to hurt him. They both sit in the silence of what they are feeling, his embarrassment and a sense of powerlessness, hers anger and gratefulness. He is embarrassed to be a part of an oppressive system that he himself perpetuates. He is powerless because he is trapped, earning his livelihood in a system he has come to detest. She's angry that she's not raising her children herself and is grateful that someone is so selfless and kind to her that he would give up his well-being for her sake and her children's. He is fully aware of how much he cares for them. She is fully aware of how much he cares for them and that he is much better able to protect them than she ever could anywhere in the world in that time, paradoxically. The protection he is able to provide them makes her angry. As a mother, she cannot help but feel that it is her role to protect her children. The little girl crawls to him and pulls on his pant leg. He talks to her as he reaches down to pick her up. The little boy follows suit. He reaches down and picks him up as well. Then Tenzi removes a towel from across her lap and uses it to quickly dry her hands and feet. She gets up from the table and leaves all three. Cognizant of and sensitive to the jealousy she is feeling, he brings the children to her, where she takes a rest on the bed, which he has abandoned to her. You're still their mother. No one can ever replace you. He watches them crawl into the comfort of the curve of her arms. Now, right here, Denise is speaking with one of her spirit guides, and his name is Dureni. Dureni is telling me that such is the reality of a woman's life. She does not get a life in which there is some arrangement for her to come home to her children each night. Her days in the fields are too long for that. Having the children up and out before the crack of dawn, if Beruzzi were to take her out to the fields when she heads out, or having them out after dark in order to pick her up when her day's work is done, would leave Mother Beruzzi absolutely no time to keep his affairs in order. Thus, the best she is going to get with regard to spending time with her children is from very late Friday night to the crack of dawn Monday morning, when the children's daily routine is disrupted to accommodate her transport. Ventenzi is envied by the other slaves, both male and female alike. Understanding her fellow slaves' resentment towards her for being favored by the master simply by her being, without having earned her favors, makes it relatively easy for her to forgive their animosity. generously sharing baked goods with her colleagues since getting Saturdays off, which is a gesture of showing that when she is away from the fields and they are not, she empathizes with their condition, thus helping most to eventually warm to her. It has been just over a year since she started working on the plantation. Thus far, Brandes has kept his promise to his brother regarding how she is to be treated. During the first several months, she was always on guard for the worst. Now she settles into her routine of long, laborious days in the field and short nights to rest. This night, like all other nights on the plantation, along with other slaves with whom she shares a cabin, she wearily drags herself to the cabin. She's about to enter when two slaves in their prime, what white people in my time would call black men, each grabs one of her arms. Her struggle has no effect on their grip. One of them grunts, Massa wants to see you. She is at a loss as to what the summons could mean, but she knows it cannot be good. Into the barn they drag her. Another black buck wearing a flour sack for a shirt is in full central view holding the rod of the branding iron that is being prepared in the red hot coals. She is terrified, her widened eyes fixated on the fire in front of her, as if willing the rod to stay away. It is. She does not seem to hear the command from Brandes, who is standing off to the side. Get her ready. With that, each of the two slaves gripping her grabs the neck of her flour sack dress, and in unison they rip in opposite directions. Master gives his next command, now. In terror, she watches the redness of the iron get closer and closer. She hears the sizzle against her flesh, wails in agony, and passes out, escaping the stench of her burning flesh rising in the atmosphere. The branding agent's return is implement to the coals, lifts his bucket of water and dashes the water onto her chest. Her limp body hangs between the two black bucks that held it during the branding process. Take her back to the cabin. Brandes orders. The expected yes, massa falls out of the mouths of the two black bucks. Black bucks, the true sense of Brandes' mentality, that is, they are of the lower rank of human form, not quite human, not capable of thinking for themselves, except to meet their principal needs, taught therefore through the conditioning of fear, how to obey without questioning. And this is the writer here speaking again to let us know what was going on with Ventenzi spiritually during the branding process. She was never alone. Neither were any promises made to her before her assignment broken. When she got to the point where the pain was too much for her, Honoru sprinkled his flecks of gold over her. Dureni stepped in front of her and absorbed most of the pain. Ari put her hand over her eyes to close them, and the angels prayed to the Lord God Almighty to give her the strength to endure. Now on her slab of wood for a bed, the angels of the Lord administered to her. They anoint her wound with a healing balm from another plane. The spirit is comforted, resting in the assurance that her condition is temporary. More importantly, her purpose of coming to earth is being fulfilled. That is in order to move what is seen as black bodies out of their present condition of subhuman bondage. Black bodies must cross the ocean and endure. They must live and they must reproduce. They must elevate themselves in their new world and change the destiny that the white man has set for them. Otherwise, the ones left in Africa will forever be subjugated in their homeland, not unlike the ones who are dragged to their new world. That is what we see as their purpose on their earthly plane. On the spiritual plane, however, their God's plan is to thwart the social changes that evil has designed to harvest the spirit of black beings, while the white human is interested in exploiting the flesh. The God that motivates them is interested in exploiting the mind of their joint target. Centuries will pass before black beings move out of their place of literal and spiritual torment. And in the process, white beings as well as black beings will take credit for the appearance of upward social movement of black beings. But without the impact of the unseen world, these changes would never come about, for it is only through the support from beings such as Dureni, Anaru, Ari, and the countless numbers of angels who are forever interceding that changes are made for the betterment of humanity. An angel breathes on her. She awakes to the feeling of fire in her bosom. She does not cry out, though the pain is excruciating. One of her cabin mates, a woman about the same age as she, brings her some ashes paste to aid in drying out the fluid that forms over burnt flesh as a natural healing agent. She does not move to accept it. The woman proceeds to gently remove the sheet covering Ventenzi, who is lying in a loose fetal position. She carefully aids Ventenzi in turning onto her back and starts to apply the paste to Ventenzi's exposed chest. She then produces a needle and some yarn. Sister, allow me to mend your garment while you rest. Ventenzi lies in silence while by candlelight the woman makes big stitches with the thick yarn. She is grateful to the woman, but she does not speak her words of appreciation. She is occupied in thoughts of the sins of the world, her human mind wondering if they really go unpunished. She is rational in her thoughts of revenge. It can be done, but only at the expense of her life. It is not much of a life, not really worth living, but a life worth living when assessed by earthly standards was not her purpose in accepting this assignment. What keeps her going is that innate measure of faith given by the Creator, who all those who belong to Him, and even those who are cut off from Him, a measure of faith that breathes light on her innate knowledge that she has a purpose to fulfill. The pain will not allow her to get any sleep. Thus she does not need a lash to be awakened when the overseer starts cracking the whip to get the slaves started on their daily routine. Like all the slaves that are branded daily throughout the world, she is expected to function as usual in the field. Like every slave, every one of whom gets their healing balm from the unseen aid, she will go out into the field and she will make it through the day. Pardon me. It is Wednesday. Tomorrow she will again go to work as usual and again on Friday before she goes home to her family for 2 days. Excuse me. My goodness, I'm tired. I need some sleep. Beruzi immediately notices that she does not clutch the children to her bosom, as is her normal ritual on reacquainting with them when he takes them along to retrieve her on Friday nights. This night she places one head on each of her thighs and leaves them in their sleeping state. He does not comment. On arrival at the cabin, he takes the children off their mother's lap and brings them to the individual cribs in which each now sleeps. It is not unusual for Vincenzi to go to sleep immediately upon arrival late Friday night. Berusi pulls the sheet over the children and wishes her a good sleep. By the time the children awake, Beruzi has their bottles ready and waiting for them, as soon as their diapers are changed. They appropriately refer to him as Dada, as usual he tends to them before their mother is awake. What is not usual is the way she responds to them when they lunge at her to give her a hug. Instinctively, she is protective of what will take months to heal in her body, but never in the soul as long as it remains in an earthbound body. Christ, Ventenzi, they haven't seen you all week. Do you think you could be a bit more motherly than that? She ignores him. He won't be ignored, and neither will he remain silent about what he sees as her being neglectful of his children. Why won't you let them hug you? Why won't you hug them? Why so protective of yourself all of a sudden? Then he realized something is very wrong. He knows what it is. But to confirm, with both hands, he grabs her dress by the neck and gives it one solid rip before she can prevent him from getting a grip. He is angry, livid. Brandes, you son of a bitch! Without saying another word, he storms out. Despite his anger, he is quite cognizant that how he reacts to his brother's betrayal will further affect any action his brother takes towards Ventenzi. Brandes would use Ventenzi's powerlessness to retaliate. Though he feels that he could not have gotten to his brother's house fast enough, the time it took for him to get there made a world of difference to Ventenzi's well-being in the short term, and perhaps in the long term as well. Brandes is sitting smugly at his desk when his brother storms into his office. He is expecting the visit. Baruzzi slams down a stack of money on his desk. There is your labor for a year. You lay another hand on her and I will kill you, you son of a bitch. He does not wait around for a response, but leaves in the same fit of anger in which he came. Outside, Baruzzi on his face, it dawns. Outside, the breeze on his face, it dawns on Baruzzi now more than ever before that Ventenzi's quality of life, the quality of life of the trio, depends solely on his life. Were he to die or fall into serious economic hardship, the lives of the three charges in his house would cease to exist as they know it, and not for the better. Since the children in Baruzzi's care are isolated from the world, they really have no clue of how it is to be treated as a nigger, not even when Uncle Brandes teases their daddy, Baruzzi. Slave children their age, not quite 1.5 years old, are kept in pens, while their mothers labor in the fields. They are fed slop in troughs, not unlike the way pigs are fed in a pen, except they use hands instead of snoots, as their feeding instrument. The retired slave responsible for them while in the pen is usually an old female slave whose body is much too feeble and eyesight much too dim to go to the fields. She earns her keep by way of childcare, and when she's too old to do that, she is discarded in the woods. And this is the writer, Denise, speaking again. If you think this childcare arrangement and retirement process for slaves is make-believe, start doing your research on what became of useless slaves. You would be appalled, sickened, unless of course you have allowed your light to be guided by darkness. You can start your research by reading Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an African Slave, wherein he gives his own account of how his grandmother was discarded. I'm adding my little bit here. Not only were they discarded, they were sometimes murdered and used for dog food or human consumption. The luckier children, the ones born to house niggers, are not much better off than their penned counterparts. You see, their mothers are not free to cater to their valid demands for their mother's attention. So they basically wander around the yard of their owner, neglected, quite the same as outdoor dogs are treated. When they're hurt, hungry, or sleepy, the mother is not free to tend to their need. Her station in life is to take care of the needs and wants of her mistress and her master, and this includes the needs and wants of her owner's children, who are also her masters and mistresses' or Ms. Thus, her toddler children sleep where they get tired enough to fall asleep, eat when their mother gets a chance to feed them, or eat whatever they find, and suffer whatever ails them until. In her Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, Linda Brent gives a very vivid account in her chapter entitled Scenes at the Plantation of what it is to be a mother of a young child and a house nigger simultaneously. If her constraints as a mother does not move you to anger, then there is no guessing the source of your being nor the state of your light. Now, Denise is stating her opinion here, and she's being cautioned by one of her spiritual guides. And this is what the spiritual guide is saying to her. Denise, it is not nice to say offensive things to your readers. You will lose them if you offend them. If they read and do nothing with what they know as a result, I rather that they not read anything that manifests or resurface through me. There is such a freedom in not being liked. I don't have to worry about falling out of favor with anyone. I do not write to entertain, nor do I write to give anyone a temporary feel-good pill that changes nothing. And that's my sister Denise responding to the spirit guide. And we're very much alike, whether she wants to admit it or not. I've admitted that many years now. It is also not uncommon to find a slave girl who is not much older than the penned or free-range chicken taking care of those children. Oh my goodness, let me read that again. I'm very tired. It is also not uncommon to find a slave girl who is not much older than the penned or free-range children taking care of those children. Beruzzi is in a quandary. He makes it back to the cabin, but he does not go inside. He wanders around outside, trying to think of a way to secure a future for his 3 charges. He does not know whether Brandes, for some perverse pleasure, will return the money to him and demand that his property does her time in the field. Brandes sees his brother's kindness to the inferior beings as a threat to his existence in generations to come, and as well as an immediate threat to his way of life, his self-conferred human label, master, must never be diminished by allowing black beings, not even for a moment, to entertain the thought that they could possibly be equal in terms of genetic composition. If more people treated their slaves as Beruzzi treats his, the system which gives him Brandes his self-worth would collapse. He cannot have that, cannot afford to compete with his equals, white people as well as black beings, for socio-economic resources, not when they can be readily used for his economic advancement, or at that very least, not when he can use them to maintain his current social status. He must therefore ensure that his children maintain their genetic and social station in life. Clearly, from Beruzzi's perspective, Brandes could do without his investment in the trio. They are insignificant to his overall wealth. However, his unfounded hatred for the beings he sees as black is what motivates him to latch on to ownership of an investment Beruzzi feels his brother never needed. No answers came to him as to what his next move should be. in permanently prying Ventenzi from his brother's grip and also securing a brighter future for his children. Broken, dejected, he goes inside the cabin. With no answers, no idea of how to even open a conversation with the woman who occupies his room, he goes to the open door. The babies are sleeping next to their mother, but she is not. He looks at her, still not knowing what to say to her. His intention as he gets closer is to examine the twins. If he were their biological father, the examination would be one of admiration and fear for their future. The children appear to be okay. Now his natural inclination is to see about the well-being of the mother. He crouches beside her and, careful not to add to her hurt, puts both his arms around her, where he takes the vacant spot on the bed and holds her in silence. He wants to let go, but instead kisses her temple, against which he then rests his face. She is receptive to his touch. He lies alongside her and keeps her in the safety of his arms. It is the crack of dawn Monday morning. Vincenzi gets up and starts to prepare herself for her arduous field work. From the loft where he now sleeps and has been sleeping for a year and a half, except when Vincenzi is away at work, Beruzzi hears his former bedroom door crack open and sees a streak of moonlight glimmering onto the dining table. Usually he would be the first one up Monday mornings. It was with great pain that he had awakened her in the mornings for over a year, letting her sleep as long as she could. On this morning, he comes to the slightly open door and glances at the sleeping children before he speaks. "You're not going." She looks at him quizzically. He repeats himself, "Go back to bed. You're not going." She does not want to argue with him. Her time in bondage has taught her not to question aloud the decision of her white superiors, especially not that of the one who treats her as a human being. Not wanting to make any promises to her that he cannot keep, not wanting to raise her hopes in any way, and then find it is to no avail. He does not tell her that if he has his way, she will never again be at the mercy of her other master. In his efforts to bring his will into manifestation, he has paid for a year of her life with the intention of securing her for a lifetime away from his brother, as he is now aware that if given another opportunity, Brandes will renege on the next clause in their agreement by doing what is common and accepted practice among slaveholders. He will sexually violate her. Like countless other owners of human flesh, will release his sexual desire by barbarously taking from her that which she, like most sexually undamaged female human, considers to be her most sacred element of being, setting aside, of course, only her creator as being more sacred. And Denise, the writer, is speaking again. When such an attack is made on the body, it irreversibly wounds the spirit. If it did not, we would not carry the effects in our broken spirit long after the effects on our bodies have healed. Don't kid yourself into believing only female slaves suffer this brutality at the hands of their masters. Look around you. Do you think man desiring man is something as recent as the acceptability of gay marriage? How do you think homosexually inclined slave owners had their sexual desires quenched momentarily while maintaining the illusion of heterosexual love and while being good Christians? This means Abel is at no less a risk of being sexually violated than his sister Mabel. Evil is by far more desirous of wounding the spirit in efforts to harvest it than he cares about destroying the flesh. The unthinkable crosses his mind. One day the little girl, who now calls him Dada, will face the savagery of his brother, brand her, rape her, sell her, take her happiness, is what he contemplates with each chop of firewood, which, as is evidenced by the increasing stockpile against the cabin, he clearly will not be using anytime soon. It is probably a good thing I am in the bushes of Green Park, Clarendon, Jamaica right now. 1:01 a.m., Thursday, April 23, 2015. Otherwise, I would be doing something I have never even considered doing thus far. That is, I would be looking at the internet to get ideas. What would be possible options for Baruzzi regarding the security of his slaves, whom he warns to protect from the whom he wants to protect from the savagery of slavery. But since I do not currently have the luxury of the internet, nor even a library, I will continue to depend on my co-authors for the furtherance of their stories. Now, the place she's referring to is where we were both born and raised until we were 8 and 10 years old. Yeah, we still maintain a family home there. Mid-morning, a peaceful-looking morning in the view from the cabin, down the pathway to the river and beyond. Beruzzi and his ready-made family are just about finished having breakfast. Ventisi does not take for granted her privilege of enjoying a cup of coffee with sausages and biscuits. She takes a biscuit from the many in the small basket on the table, breaks it in halves, puts them on her plate, and reaches for the honey jug. She drizzles honey onto both halves of the biscuit and hands one to each of her children, where they sit in their wooden high chairs at the table, still enjoying their first or second serving of biscuits. Baruzzi has no intention of leaving home today. He is expecting his brother to come looking for his property. He does not have long to wait because his brother is on his way up the pathway. Through the window across from the table, they can see his carriage making its way to the cabin. Baruzzi immediately gets up from the table to meet his brother outside. "You stay here," he orders, as though Vincenzi had any intention of going out to join the conversation. He stands at a distance from his front door and waits for his brother. The carriage stops barely 2 feet from him. Brandes gets out of the carriage without pleasantries. He gets right to the purpose of his visit. "You know why I'm here." "Yeah, you son of a bitch. My position has changed." "My position hasn't changed. Now I suggest you get back into that carriage of yours and leave my property." "Interesting that you should say leave your property since I'm here to claim mine. Look, I don't know why you've gotten so worked up. All the slaves get branded sooner or later, and they all get on just fine. It's no big deal." "Woomph!" is the sound Beruzzi's punch makes as a result of his fist connecting with his brother's jawbone. Neither of the two expected the blow. One looks just as shocked as the other, but one has pain to accompany his shock. Brandes is too busy nursing his pain to speak, and so his brother starts doing the talking. "No big deal, huh? Tell you what, I still have some firewood, red hot firewood, I use for cooking my breakfast. How about I shove a piece of it into your chest? It's no big deal. You will get on just fine after that. You wait here a minute while I get it for you." He swiftly moved to open the cabin door. Brandes cannot recall seeing his brother in that temper, and now seriously fears for his safety. Despite his hurried movement, he fears he cannot get into his carriage fast enough, ordering his departure. "Get me the hell out of here!" before he manages to hastily close the door. Throughout their lives, Brandes, being the older of the twins, has always been the aggressor. It never occurred to him that his brother would ever physically attack him, and now he does know how to respond. Brother's brain gone mad. He could go to the authorities, but his brother has broken no law in refusing to let his slave work in the fields. Furthermore, her labor has been paid, thus he is not at a financial loss. At least by getting paid in advance, he is sure to get a full year's profit in her absentee labor. Perhaps he could bring the sheriff on his brother for battery. Oh, but wait. He was told to leave private property and did not, which resulted in the parting gift. He has no intention of accepting what he sees as a short period of being at a disadvantage. Nursing his jaw by cradling it in one palm, stacked against the other, he considers his next move. For weeks, Baruzzi has not let the trio out of his sight. They go where he goes, and that is not to many places. He and Ventenzino cook together, work around the farm together, picnic by the stream together, fish together, do household chores together, care for the children together, and share spontaneous moments of couples play, such as splashing each other by the stream to force the other into swim. They often gaze at each other with fondness. Such is the case this night after he soothes the foreheads of the children who have fallen asleep in the fold of their mother's arms, as he read all three a story from the bench, which he moved from the foot of the bed to the woman's bedside. Now, after tucking the babies into their cribs, he kisses Ventenzi's forehead and is about to move the bench back to the foot of the bed, but something causes him to stop and search her eyes with his. He wants her. She wants him. He moves in to kiss her lips, but he doesn't. Instead, he closes his eyes, buries his face in the side of her face, moving his nose about while he inhales a deep breath of her, before whispering in her ear, "It would be wrong of me." It is with great restraint that he extinguishes the lantern and leaves with a heightened awareness of the unequal distribution of power in their relationship, the discomfort of which caused him to leave without putting the bench back into place at the foot of the bed. She, too, has her issues to resolve. Honoru, he is her issue. Although he does not have the same reservations as she, for long since her captivity has given his blessing to the relationship between her and Baruzzi. She knows this. She has known this for over a year. For when Baruzzi had made the decision to babysit while she went into the field to fulfill Brande's wish, Anaru had visited her in a dream that very night to let her know that the children were in good hands, and that she too was in good hands. He had released her not only to Baruzzi, but also to other prospects who might be good for her. Brande's cruelty brought forth his brother's highest level of compassion in Ventenzi's life, though I am inclined to believe she would much rather have worked 100 years in the field than being burned to the point of human unconsciousness. She has long desired Baruzzi, but was determined not to give herself to him from a place of embedded indebtedness. She greatly respects him for never putting her in a position where she might have succumbed to his advances out of gratitude or fear. Now, however, she desires him and is even a bit annoyed that he chooses to remain a gentleman in the true sense of the word gentleman. As woman, she has reservations about encouraging him. It is now clear to her that he is not going to take her by force. He is not going to manipulate her, and he has reservations about whether he should step over a threshold that would change their relationship from somewhat uncomplicated arrangement change their relationship from its somewhat uncomplicated arrangement. She sinks the back of her head into her pillow before sucking in a deep breath of air while using her eyes to search the ceiling in the dimness of the night. Now closing her eyes, she exhales the breath of air by blowing from the depth of her belly, resting as though studying the ceiling for an answer. She gets up from her bed and quietly leaves behind the undefiled boundary of the room she has occupied for the last 18 months by tiptoeing through the darkness of the kitchen and up the wooden steps to the loft. He knows she's there, and he knows why. Without a word, while a particular muscle uncontrollably strengthens itself, he waits to give her an opportunity to change her mind. The moonlight shining through the window gives her a clear silhouette of him. She slides down alongside him and starts to search him with one hand. He allows her the time to become familiar with him because he has long desired to search her in the same way. He takes her hand and searches it with his, and then her arm. It is apparent that it is something they had both long desired. The exploration of the physical aspect of each other, to know the unreserved touch of each other's physical being. Nonetheless, he tries to give her another out, whispering in her ear, after inhaling as much of her as he can. As much as I want you, I don't. She slides her index finger up his lower lip and down his upper lip to stop him from talking. He is done holding back that which he has held back for he doesn't even know how long. It is hard to say who wants whom more. And here is Denise again expressing her opinion. Hey, this is where the story has taken me. Personally, I would have preferred if they had left sex out of the relationship, but I am just here to write what I see. And we'll leave it there for now and pick up at chapter 10 next time. Chapter 10 is entitled A Love of the Forbidden Sort. Now, if you have enjoyed your time with me, I humbly ask that you like, share, and subscribe. I wish you Barak and Shalom.